Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to a lovely, slightly chilly Thursday afternoon of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. Fulton Caster here with you. As you can tell, as of right now, by not hearing his voice, or if you're watching us live on YouTube at Sports on 580, Jake LeBon is not with us this afternoon. Jake has the day off. We will see him tomorrow. He will join us today. It is just me rolling with you this afternoon here on 580 WIBW, the sports voice of Kansas. We got a fun show going on for you today here on Mic'd Up. We're going to kick things off here in a little bit. Time of the wide receivers versus the Chargers. A couple of options are going to be out coming up here on Sunday night, which means we could get a really early glimpse at the potential 2023 wide receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs and see if those are enough to get the job done. We'll take a look at that. We'll also look at the rankings. The ESPN put out their rankings of 2023 NFL free agents, some of their best players available. A couple of Kansas City Chiefs have found their way on that board. We'll look at what they think about contracts, whether they think the Chiefs will re-sign it, and look at the idea of what the Chiefs should do with free agents coming up this off season. We got our Thursday Night Football same game parlay. Jake may not be with us here on air, but trust me, Jake, along with myself, will give you our same game parlay for Thursday Night Football tonight as the Green Bay Packers take on the Tennessee Titans. I know, a very hotly contested matchup in that one as we try to build upon our lead or come back from a deficit. Honestly, we aren't tracking this really well at this point of where we are in relation to the 580 Sports crew of Brendan and Dan when it comes to our Thursday Night Football same game parlay as well. That for you as well. We got a pair of awesome guests for you with you here on Thursday. We have Paul Myerberg. He will join us at the bottom of this hour for the Big 12 Breakdown brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery. And then at the bottom of the 1 o'clock hour, Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network will join us to chat all things Chiefs. And then today's list, I'm very excited for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Best athlete nicknames. I was scrolling Twitter, and Mina Kimes, who covers the NFL for ESPN, does some fantastic work on her podcast that she does. They got down a rabbit hole of nicknames you can find on Pro Football Reference, a rabbit hole that myself, Dan Lucero, and Brendan Dorzinski have gone down many times, because those are not nicknames on that site that they had to have been called. It's just someone chooses to put it on there. And so in honor of that rabbit hole, we're not going to do the fake nicknames that are on Pro Football Reference. We're going to go through just some of the best athlete nicknames of all time. They don't have to be currently playing. They could be not with us anymore. Best athlete nicknames in any sport of all time. We are surely not going to give you the 4 best overall. So please, if you have a thought on that or anything else with today's show, you can chime in on the Big O Tires text line 785-272-9429, or the new fun way we have going on here. We're going to, I think, week 3 at this point. We are live on YouTube at Sports on 580. You can hop in, watch a live stream. It's mainly just me today. You can roast or like my hair. I don't know. That's about the only thing I'd say you can maybe do. Got the Chiefs sweatshirt rocking today as we're going on through this afternoon. You can also hop in on the comment section of our YouTube page at Sports on 580 for today's live stream. That's another way you can interact with the show as well. But to kick things off, the Chiefs wide receiver situation coming up on Sunday night against the LA Chargers at SoFi Stadium in LA, a game in which I don't know if I want to call it a road game since no fans even want to go to support the LA Chargers at this point, or the LA Rams, two not great football teams. The Chiefs might be down their 2 most veteran wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster is still dealing with concussion issues. There's not been an update on that yet. He is most likely going to miss the game coming up on Sunday night. I would be surprised if he ends up playing, but you never know. Some of those things can change at a moment's notice. And then McCole Hardman still not at practice today, dealing with that illness and also abdominal injury. So he might miss the game as well. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he missed the game. Missed practice yesterday. He is actually back at practice today after dealing with a little bit of a stomach bug. He is back. He should play. So, under the pretext that Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and Justin Watson all play, that all 4 of those are good to go. There's something notable about those 4 guys being your top 4 wide receivers. That, as of now, is your receiver room potentially next year, minus potentially Justin Watson, who will be a free agent and might command a decent amount of money as a extra depth wide receiver. Not something I thought of when the season began, but he's played moderately well. So if anything, this game could give us a great look into the potential wide receiver room for 2023 and let us know, does that work? No? Does a wide receiver trio of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, and Sky Moore, along with your tight end and Travis Kelce, is that enough in pass catching options? You add Judy Fortson in there, maybe Noah Gray. Is that enough? Is that enough pass catchers for the Chiefs? Or do they need to go make a move? Because we've discussed, Jake and I are both, I know Jake has been on this train longer than me, but Jake and I are both fully on the side of try and re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. We'll get into that a little bit more in the 1 o'clock hour. But Jake and I have the thought of, you re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. You would like to do that. But with the way he's playing, he might price himself out of Kansas City. And so if he does, you have to view it as the way if he's maybe not there. So if so, it's MVS, it's Toney, and it's Moore. Those are your three guys guaranteed under contract if the Chiefs want them to be next season. MVS, you could move on from after year one, but he is for sure under contract if the Chiefs want him to in year two. Kadarius Toney still on his rookie deal. Sky Moore, obviously, will still be on his rookie deal. And I really wonder if that would be enough. And that is what our big question here is if that is enough. Because all three of them, I think, have skill sets that are very useful. And in particular, Kadarius Toney is the one that's shown a little bit of a heavy inclusion in the offense, especially since he has arrived here in such a short time. But I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling with his deep threat ability, you would like to think that he can, continue to do things, continue to show off on a few different things, but you never know. But can he be a wide receiver one, a wide receiver two? Because we thought he'd be more of wide receiver two coming into this offseason. But if you look at his numbers, he's really not. We've seen a lot of Kadarius Toney here briefly, but he's still learning his way into the offense. And we've talked at length of the fact that Sky Moore essentially doesn't get any sort of a run on the offense. So this will be the first true test of what can the Chiefs do with those guys. And I think it can work. You have MVS to stretch the field just on a straight go route concept or things like that. You have MVS that can stretch the field that way. Sky Moore, I really think once he gets a handle on this offense, will be a great intermediate threat and a good job getting open and handling some different things. And we've seen already what Kadarius Toney can bring to this team. So I think that, one, they can beat the Chargers without Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman. Partly because the Chargers just aren't good. Like, I'm sorry if I annoy anyone with that, but they're just not good. I mean, they're fine, but they're so banged up. They have no one on their offensive line. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams might be back, and if they're back, they're not going to be at 100%. So they should be able to beat them in that context, but is this a wide receiver group you can trust going forward? And I think this is truly a rare opportunity to really get a look at that in a game setting against a division opponent on the road, where it might be a little tough to get things done because the Chargers, as much as I will say, they're not that great. They're banged up, et cetera, et cetera. They still play the Chiefs hard. They always do. No matter what, it's always been, those games seem to be close games. And so seeing what they can do will be interesting because the wide receiver options next year as free agents are not particularly great if you can't re-sign somebody like Juju Smith-Schuster. Just to take a look at a few of these wide receivers here. Nelson Aguilar will be a free agent. Sterling Shepard, DJ Shark, the corpse of Randall Cobb. I'm sorry, Brendan. Marvin Jones. Old friend Byron Pringle is technically a free agent at the end of this year. He only signed a one-year contract with the Chicago Bears. But no one here screams guy who can help fix something if these three guys can't get it done. Because you want to resign. I think we all know, and I would assume I speak for a good chunk of Chiefs Kingdom, when I say the goal would be to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster, pair him back up with this room, run it back with this room, because it obviously works. But you never know what's going to happen on those free agent markets. And if Juju Smith-Schuster is smart, he won't even entertain the idea of an extension or a new contract while the season's playing out because he's been playing so well. So then it comes down to if you had to get somebody else, there's not a lot of good options. If you want to go big body, maybe you go DJ Shark because he does stand 6'4" and can run down the field similar to MVS. He's also only played in 3 games this year. Injuries have bugged in the last couple years. Nelson Aguilar works and he plays kind of well, but he has drop problems and he has a fumble problem this year. There's a lot of veteran options, but no one you would go, we need them to get this done, or this guy really changes the calculus on the offense. And so I think it'll be great if we can see coming up on Sunday if these 2023 pass sketchers are the guys who can get it done. Can these 3 guys, MVS, Tony, and Moore, play really well alongside Travis Kelce, alongside Noah Gray, alongside Jody Fortson, my guy? Because if they do, you're going to feel so much more confident if the Chiefs can't sign Juju Smith-Schuster. If they can't re-sign him, but we saw in this game that these guys can get the job done, you're going to feel better. Or at least I know I will feel better. But let's say the offense struggles. The receivers can't get open. Nothing gets rolling. They might still win the game, but the offense is stagnant. It's going to give you some pause if this team can't re-sign Juju come the offseason. So that's why it's such a big question and one we never thought we'd have to really ask ourselves of what the Chiefs would do, because we know that it was going to have to happen, that there's a chance that this would be the wide receiver room going forward. It's why Jake and I have touted so much that the Kadarius Toney decision and decision to trade for him and acquire him was so much of a future move, because the Chiefs had at that point 2 wide receivers on the books for 2023 and MVS and Sky Moore. Now you have 3 guaranteed. But I want to see what these guys can do when they have to be the focal point of the offense, when they have to move it. What does MVS look like when he's basically wide receiver 1? Because if Hardman and Juju aren't playing, MVS is your wide receiver 1. Tony could step up and get those targets and get those chances and get those opportunities to really perform and do something in such a way to really make this team better and really be the focal point of this offense. But you got to remember, he's barely been here a month. So to say he can work in and he'll just be wide receiver 1 immediately, I don't know. So that's why maybe a guy like MVS, this is his opportunity to really step up, really try and showcase himself and really try and go off in such a way that'll really make some things perform and try and play at such a higher level. I don't know. We'll have to see going forward if that's what happens. But this is such a great opportunity for guys like Marquez, for guys like Kadarius Toney, for guys like Sky Moore to show what they can do. Because that's the question. That's always been our question. Can they be the guy? Can they lead this offense? And that's what they're going to be tasked with doing. They're not going to, Travis Kelce might get 80 targets in the game. If Juju and Hardman are down, I am only slightly exaggerating at that point. But you still need receiver help to help you out. And then there are other parts of the offense too. Isaiah Pacheco maybe trying to get some other running game going. But this wide receiver room is going to be put to such an interesting test come Sunday if Juju can't play and if McCole Hardman can't play, because there's going to be so many. I'm going to use the term no-name guys, and I mean that not in a disrespectful way. I think sometimes that term can be used in a disrespectful connotation. But they're just not household names. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but he's just a deep threat. Well, can he be more? Well, Kadarius Toney's flashed well, but he was a head case in the Giants and this and that. It's like, well, what can he do learning more? We all want to see so much more out of Sky Moore. This is his chance. If Sky Moore can't get on the field as basically the 3rd best wide receiver option with all the health issues, it's not an indictment of him that makes me worried for subsequent seasons. But it basically makes me believe you're not going to see nothing the rest of this year. This is his golden opportunity. Earn some trust with Patrick Mahomes. Earn some trust with 15 and make some plays and do some things going forward. It's going to be interesting to see what the receivers look like coming up on Sunday. But we're going to get potentially a great glimpse into what 2023 could look like. And it might look really good and assuage some fears if this team can't re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. And hell, if they can't re-sign Justin Watson. We'll take our first timeout. When we come back, The Cy Young Award was just given out yesterday at a random afternoon on a Wednesday. Rob Manfred, you got to fix your marketing problem, man. That's coming up next year on Mike. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Well, I was going to lament about the Cy Young Awards. And I will still real quick. Because why are they being given out at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday? Why? This is my thing with, like, the NFL makes everything they do seem so important. They make every little thing they do seem like the biggest thing in the world. Baseball needs to do that as well. But there is something different I do want to get to real quick, because this just came down the pipe. I mean, we're going to say, it happened at the top of the hour, and I completely missed it. Listen, you get a lot going on. You have to run a show by yourself for a day. You miss some things. But there's some news regarding the Royals broadcasting crew. After 43 years in the biz, our good friend Steve Physiak is retiring from broadcasting after 43 years. Fizz is deciding to retire. He's going to ride off into that sunset, try to relax, take a chill pill, have a good time. I don't know, whatever Fizz wants to do, but the Royals broadcast crew will now be down a man as Steve Physiak is officially going to retirement. I know I speak for myself. I would love to believe I speak for Jake LeBon and the entire station here when we say, congrats, Fizz. It's well-deserved to you, my friend. Have a great retirement. Relax, chill, and now just don't watch baseball because you're forced to. Just enjoy some baseball. Fizz is going to spend as much time as he wants to, probably still watching the Royals, watching the boys in blue. But I just know Fizz, among anybody, deserves a nice, long retirement. So I just want to make sure we got to that as well. Here's that. Have a little baseball break in the broadcast. Might as well discuss Fizz getting a chance on his retirement. But yeah, congrats to Fizz. But when it comes to baseball, I would love them to market themselves better. I truly would, because you shouldn't give out your biggest awards at just an afternoon on a weekday. I mean, think about it. Think about the MVP award for football and the Offensive Player of the Year award and all their awards. They do an awards banquet that's hosted on ESPN. The biggest sports network does like a 2-hour show, gala style, for their awards. The NBA does something I think kind of similar. Honestly, I don't know. I don't follow the NBA closely enough. But you at least know what's going on there, and they let people, make these different awards and announcements. Meanwhile, baseball's handing out some of their most prized possessions on just a weekday that I don't even know if it's even on MLB Network. It's never televised, not talked about. I only know because I follow the sport so intimately. Sandy Alcantara had one of the best seasons by pitcher in I don't know how long. They're almost 230 innings. He had 6 complete games in 2022. In the year 2022, he had 6 complete games. He's your National League Cy Young winner. I don't know how many of you would have known that if I hadn't said this right now. Justin Verlander had a great season. He is the 4th oldest Cy Young winner ever. Ever. The 4th oldest guy to do it. And yet, I mean, I doubt anyone would have known if they hadn't really bothered to look. That's baseball's problem. And that's the thing that's just become so infuriating to me. And I know we're probably all tired of hearing me rant about baseball and their issues being marketed, but this is why. Jake talks about, well, baseball's a regional sport to him and it's going regional. Yeah, because they let it. Like, I don't disagree that baseball's regional now, and it's all their own fault. They have no one to blame but themselves. Rob Manfred used to be running around in a hot dog costume looking for the guy who did this. It's him. He did it. He's the one killing this sport. Because they could make it important, but they don't. The Cy Young Award is one of the most important awards given out by baseball every year. It is prestigious to win that award, and it should be treated as such. It should be second only to the MVP award. And yet, I got so much money that no one is going back to figure some things out. It's weird. I don't get it. It frustrates me, it bothers me, and it drives me up a wall. I mean, Julio Rodriguez had one of the best rookie seasons ever. He's your American League Rookie of the Year. Mike Claris II is your National League Rookie of the Year. And I bet some of you might just now be learning that for the first time. Because baseball doesn't market themselves. If they don't want to be regional, like some of the they don't want to be, you have to market yourself better. Eventually, they will. We're going to take another quick timeout. When we come back, it's time for the Big 12 Breakdown brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery as Paul Myerberg joins us here on Mic'd Up. Time for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 WIBW. Due to technical difficulties, we're still trying to reach out to Paul Myerberg. We will get him on as soon as possible to chat all things Big 12. But the Big 12 breakdown, of course, is brought to you by our good friends at the 23rd Street Brewery down there in Lawrence, Kansas. When I lived in Lawrence, I don't live there anymore. When I lived there for like 5-6 years, when I was going to school over there, 23rd Street Brewery, a great time. If you're in the Lawrence area, and you don't have a ticket to the game on Saturday, I hope you do have a ticket to the game on Saturday. Hope we can pack the booth. But if you're not, that's totally okay. Go down to the 23rd Street Brewery, get yourself some great food, get yourself some great drinks, if you're over 21, of course. And enjoy it on their big new, it's a massive new big screen they got up there. They'll put the game on going on there. They'll treat you right. So all good friends over there at the 23rd Street Brewery. Got a couple big games in the Big 12 this week. At least for our local teams in KU and K-State. KU, just at this point, they're just trying to build up their resume going into the bowl. Right now, they're honestly just jockeying for bowl positioning because I assume most of you know how these things work and seeing going forward the simple fact of, what do you do when it comes to bowl seeding? Well, unsurprisingly, bowl seeding is just simply determined by record and where you finish in the conference. Best teams go to the best bowls. That's why if TCU finishes undefeated, they'll go to the college football playoff, actually. But if they weren't going to go to the college football playoff, they would go to the Sugar Bowl. But if TCU goes to the playoff and K-State finishes basically runner-up in the Big 12, then they will go to the Sugar Bowl, the biggest non-championship game offering for any team. And then it kind of goes down and down. And at that point, you're going to some very specific bowls and weird things here and there. So KU at this point is playing for bowl positioning and bowl seeding. Where they end up with that, we really don't know. And what we'll see with that, we really don't know at this point. But KU, they are 6-4. They are guaranteed to go to a bowl game, which of course makes me happy. Everything well. With that, we now bring in our good friend Paul Myerberg, covers the Big 12 and college football for USA Today. Paul, glad to have you on, my friend. And we're going to start here with KU. We know they're 6-4. Their bowl is pretty much locked. Not even pretty much, it is locked up at this point. They have Texas coming into town on Saturday. How important do you think it is for KU at this point to get a 7th or even potentially 8th win? Or is what they're doing the rest of this year basically just gravy?
Yeah, I think it's gravy, guys. You do want to beat Texas, and we'll talk next week about the actual in-state rivalry. That would be extremely meaningful. But the truth is that you've gotten to 6 wins. Whatever you add on top of this, to me, is just, it's icing on the cake. And remember, even at 6-6, they should have a pretty favorable bowl bid with a chance to get to 7-6 in the offseason. But look, they've gotten to 6. We talked for weeks after the TCU and OU and Baylor about the importance of getting number 6. They got that. I think that was reflected a bit in how they played against Texas Tech, because it was a game that Tech had to have, and KU might have been sitting back a little bit and just really, not surprisingly, happy about where they stood. But look, we know KU can beat Texas. They've done it when they were terrible. They're now good. They could conceivably win this game and even win next week. But to me, just getting to 6-4 last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, was so big that I don't want to put any pressure on them to, you have to get to 8 wins. I think KU should be really, really happy with where they are at this point.
When I look at that game that KU played against Texas Tech, when Jake and I have talked about it, I viewed it very much many times as, Texas Tech just looked like the better team on the field, at least for that one particular game. Would you just ascribe to what happened? Was that just a case of Tech being more up for a game because they have so much left to play for, and KU maybe having a bit of that hangover from 6 wins? Would you subscribe that's where the loss came from, or was there something more at play?
Yeah, I think there's both of those factors that you mentioned are certainly at play. I think Tech's a better team than even their record indicates. I think they're 5-5. They might get to 6-6, but they're a very solid football team. They're well coached and they always play with a high level of energy. So they looked at this game as, not their bowl game, but certainly as a game they had to have to get to a bowl game. I think that was reflected in their early energy. I don't want to like, rag on KU for this being a trend, but we're seeing a trend here in their last three losses. That they come out flat, they come out slow, and by the time they try to dig themselves out, it's almost a little bit too late, even though they did close within 3 points twice, or rather 3 points late in the second and then within a touchdown in the fourth. That's a trend. It's not an issue or a reflection really of talent or coaching. I think it's a matter of coming out and being able to step right onto a field and know what you need to do right from day one, play one. And you didn't see that each of their three losses in the past. So Texas Tech had a lot on the line, KU a little bit less. But the truth is when you play a team like Tech with a similar or frankly a higher talent level, if you come out flat, you're -2 in turnovers, and you're not getting things done early, that's a hole that you're not going to dig yourself out of. So give them credit for bouncing back late and making it competitive. But again, like 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, come out flat, you're in trouble. And KU can't afford to do that going forward.
I'm with you 100% on that, Paul. There have been so many games where they truly haven't. And that was the trend really, really early in the season. West Virginia, they were down 14-0. They did end up finding a way to win that game. Houston, they're down 14-0. Find a way to win that game. They do have these big holes that they found a way to dig themselves out of. And truly, on their last few losses, they have not been able to complete the process there. And I think a thing you noted, Paul, there was being down on the turnover margin. And Jason Bean has had to start so many games here since the Jalen Daniels injury. He took over second half of TCU, then has started the last four contests for KU. He's usually played very well, but he had a pair of crucial turnovers in that game against Texas Tech. Weirdly enough, both these schools up here in the northeast part of Kansas with KU and K-State are facing a similar thing in that they have a backup quarterback trying to play for an injured starter, but it's kind of going differently for either school here. For KU was the fact that you saw Jason Bean kind of commit those critical errors. Is that one of the things that makes it guaranteed that once Jalen Daniels can play, you just have to go back to Daniels and you don't entertain the thought of sticking with Bean to finish the regular season?
Yeah, there's a real big difference between these two backup QBs, how they're being treated, and how you think things will unfold if everything was fine on the depth chart. Bean's done an admirable job of keeping things steady, bringing some explosiveness, delivering the ball downfield, and obviously getting out of the way when Devin Neal's career was really taken off these last few weeks. But when you commit big turnovers in key moments, it's the kind of thing that makes the coaching staff look at the film and realize, hey, if we keep the ball here, we add 3 points or 7 points, we don't give them a short field, it's a different game. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps coaches awake at night. Combine that with the way that Daniels had played before going down, it's a no-brainer. To me, at least, this has to be Daniels' job. And we'll talk a lot about K-State and the Howard Martinez thing. It's a different situation there. And I think KU, if they had Daniels, clearly they'd be going back to him because they can't afford to have individual plays predicated on poor decisions and mental errors be the difference between 7-3 or 6-4. And I think you're seeing that to agree with Bean. And yeah, I mean, you've got to keep it buttoned up. This isn't Oklahoma. It's not Ohio State. It's not Alabama. I mean, these are all, only one of those is a good example today, but it's not Ohio State where you can go out and get into a 17-0 hole and feel confident that your QB is going to bring you back into the game. You don't have that room for error. So single mistakes or multiple mistakes against equally talented teams are the cripplers. So yeah, you look back on Saturday, that would be a different game potentially. You get those 2 turnovers back. And I think if you look at Daniels, maybe you feel as a coaching staff that he won't make those mistakes. And that, to me, is the difference maker for a team that does not have a lot of wiggle room or room for error.
You did mention there with this Kansas team, Devin Neal's really taken off the past couple of games. Of course, he had that, record-setting performance against Oklahoma State in Lawrence. First Kansas player ever with 200 rushing yards and 100 receiving yards in the same game. Then he had another great performance against Texas Tech. Is this just Devin Neal coming into his own, or what? Because us around here, us KU fans, and even us here, in this northeast part of the state here, we kind of knew Devin Neal was going to be good. I don't know if this good is really the way to be. Is this what Devin Neal is just going to be, of just being that next star running back in the Big 12, or what would you make of how well he's played his past 2 games?
Yeah, I think what he's done is change the trajectory of his career and potentially change the trajectory or the future direction of this offense. Like you said, that no one in Lawrence is surprised. I mean, all you had to do was watch KU when they were 5-0, and even when they went 5-3, and see what Neal was doing in like really small chunks. Like he was not getting enough touches. I mean, even earlier in the year or even into the heart of Big 12 play, I don't think he was getting the ball enough because when he was getting the ball, I mean, per snap, per touch, per play, he was so productive. So it's great to see him. And I'm looking at the last 2 weeks, almost 60 carries, almost 70 touches overall. I think going forward and with this, not just at a hot hand today, but with his total skill package and the total like toolbox that he has, clearly the rest of the way and going into next year, he's got to be a 20 touch a game guy. And I think that's really interesting to think about Neal and Daniels together, about the split of how you have two guys in the same backfield who can do tremendous work through the air as a receiver or as runners or as passers, how they divvy up the touches. But look, the production speaks for itself. I mean, 400 plus rushing yards the last 2 weeks, 500 plus yards of total offense, 7.5 yards a pop. He needs to get the ball. He needs to touch the ball again and again and again. And I think that will be what the case is going forward. I don't know if he's going to be all conference this year. As we know, it's a really crowded race at the top. But going into next season, no doubt in my mind, he's preseason all conference, and he's a guy who can really make some noise, maybe a 1,500-yard guy if things work out right in 2023.
Going into this game they have coming up on Saturday in Lawrence, it's senior day. They have Texas coming to know a team that they've beaten a couple times the past few years and have stunned on a past couple of occasions. What do you think is the path to KU getting a win in this one? Is it as simple as just play your own kind of game, don't make mistakes, or is this a case of where they need someone like Jalen Daniels to be back to have a chance in it? Just what do you see as the path to KU knocking off Texas for the second straight year?
Yeah, this is going to be strange to say because no one in their right mind or no coach in their right mind would say, hey, let's take this tack unless you're Mike Leach. But I think they want to get to a shootout. I think you look at the way Texas has played in recent weeks, specifically with the way Quinn Ewers has played. If I'm Kansas, I feel really, really comfortable getting into a game where it's up and down the field. If you go up and down the field and you're scoring on 3 of 4 possessions or scoring touchdowns 2 of every 4 possessions, maybe Texas gets into a spot where they say, we can't just give Bijan Robinson the ball 35 times. We got to rely on Quinn Ewers to win this game. In the matchup of quarterbacks, whether it's Bean or Daniels against Ewers, I like KU. So I say run, 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 increase the tempo, push it, try for not your 12-play, 14-play drive like they do in Manhattan. Try to be explosive and try to put points on the board fast and in bunches and make Texas play your game. The talent disparity, you guys will see it on Saturday, is massive. Texas is really talented. They're much more talented than their record suggests. I don't want to get in a game where it's like, 21-20 in the fourth. You got to like will yourself to outplay guys who are 4 or 5-star recruits. You want to run. So I think that's the definition of a successful game for Kansas State is up tempo, avoid turnovers, and make Texas keep pace. I love that matchup if that's the case for KU.
I can't remember the last time someone said the recipe to success for beating Texas, let alone as a KU team, is you want to get into a shootout. That honestly, I'm with you, Paul, does speak. But I will say, I've also watched that same Texas team. And honestly, if this gets into a game that's played in the 40s, I'm with you. Weirdly, I like KU's chances better in that type of a scenario. Let's move on to the other team in this area, the Kansas State Wildcats. And let's start in the quarterback room because that's where I think everything's got to start. If Adrian Martinez was healthy, would you still go with Will Howard as your starter the rest of the year, or would you go back to Martinez?
No, I would start Will Howard, and I know that I'm like the biggest hypocrite in the world because I've banged the drum for Martinez, especially early about, hey, I love the way this offense looks. I love the physicality. I love the fact that Martinez is the driver of this car. You just have to look at the last couple of weeks. The way the offense plays with Howard against Martinez, you can't take the ball away from him. You got to give the ball to Howard. Realistically, even if Martinez is healthier today than he was at this point last week, we have seen that he's a play away from getting hurt. He's not really reliable right now from a physical perspective, 5 years into a really, draining, physically pounding kind of college football career. So with Will Howard under center, you feel more secure, you feel a little bit more comfortable. You got to go with Howard. The way that he's played recently, what's on the line the rest of the way, this is Will Howard's football team. let me rephrase it. It might be Adrian Martinez's football team. It might be his locker room because of the experience and the way that he has kind of demanded respect and earned that. It's Will Howard's offense. So I think Will Howard has to be the pick going forward. If Will Howard is your dude, I feel really good about Kansas State going 9-3, playing TCU for a New Year's Six bowl, and almost in a sense guaranteed to get into a New Year's Six bowl if things work out the way that they hope they do the next 2 weeks.
I was one who, at least the first few times with Martinez's injury, I was, don't let a guy lose his starting job because he's hurt and all these different things. But with the way Will Howard is playing, I'm completely with you there, Paul. And speaking of Will Howard, have you ever seen a guy just seem to flip a switch and become a great player as quickly and out of nowhere as Howard? Because he's never looked good in his first 2 years in college at Kansas State. He's never looked that good. And all of a sudden, to steal a line from Jake here, he looks like Dan Marino out there when he plays quarterback.
Yeah, he was a dude the first 2 years. There was a guy who used to play for the Jordan-era Bulls. They called the human victory cigar, where if he came in the game, you know that you were winning. You could go and take a break because you're up by 30 in the fourth quarter. Will Howard was kind of the reverse. No offense to him. The last 2 years when he came in the game, you kind of knew things were going to go south. This is a credit to Will Howard most of all and foremost, but you got to give credit to Colin Klein, for the way that they've developed him and put him not just in situations where he can succeed on Saturdays, but the work that they've done behind the scenes to get him mentally ready for this moment. And you saw it against TCU, having not thrown a pass all year, steps into the game, has 2 really important touchdown drives. I know things went south, but that predicated or preceded a really strong performance against Oklahoma State. He was ready to go against Baylor and delivered such a magnificent performance. I think it's changed the way that we're going to look at him going forward, clearly as the guy who's going to be the starter next year. He's a success story of the utmost degree in the Big 12. And I think that he is the reason why you look at Kansas State today, and they are in position to have the program's best year since maybe 20 years, since 2003, and get into a New Year's Six bowl. I think Howard deserves a tremendous amount of credit for the work that he's done.
Paul Myerberg is our guest for Big 12 Breakdown, brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery. You can follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, K-State's win over Baylor, is that the most impressive win for the Cats this year?
Oh, there's no doubt. Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. Not just for the fact that it was on the road, but it was an absolute butt kicking. I mean, they had the ball for 35 minutes. They pounded them on the ground. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They just shut down Baylor completely. That's a demoralizing loss for Baylor. And quite frankly, as complete and as outstanding a win that I've seen from any team in the Big 12 this entire season. I mean, just quite frankly, that's the kind of win that opens eyes. I don't want to get caught up in what could have been. Very clearly, Tulane, TCU, to a lesser degree, Texas. This season could have been a whole lot different. Still, that win validates the faith and the belief that a lot of people have had in this team, and I think sets them up for a 2-win finish to go 9-3 and to be in position to go to a major bowl. So a fantastic win, and the kind of win that makes you realize that this is a program headed in that direction. I know they've been building towards this season, but I think they can do even more based off the fact that they went to Baylor, won by 28, and dominated a really physical team. I can't say enough about it. Just fantastic.
K-State obviously has West Virginia this weekend. They travel to Morgantown. This is a West Virginia team that goes very up and down. They now might, have a different quarterback instead of JT Daniels at the helm. We don't know what's going to go on there. But more importantly, after this, they have Kansas coming into Manhattan and what is arguably the biggest Sunflower Showdown of this millennium, quite possibly at this point. Is there a chance that with Kansas looming, does West Virginia take on any sense of a trap game for Kansas State where if they're not careful, everything could get derailed over there in Morgantown?
Yes, only because, like you said, that this West Virginia team is hard to predict. They're not good. Let's not get it twisted. This is not a good football team. And I have a feeling that they're headed for a coaching change. They just fired their AD, Shane Lyons. Neil Brown is under a tremendous amount of pressure. That could go one of two ways. They could give up and quit. They didn't really do that against OU, or they could rally, try to get the 6 wins to save his job. It's always could go either way. To me, this is a Kansas State win. It's a clear Kansas State win as long as you don't turn the ball over. Because West Virginia as a team, we saw against Iowa State, we saw against Texas Tech. You hit them in the mouth early, they're going to quit. That's just flat out. They're going to quit. So if Kansas State's up 14-0, they're keeping the ball safe. They're pounding away up front. They can run away with this thing. So I know they're about a touchdown favorite on the road. That feels a little bit low. If Kansas State plays their game, this is a 14 or 17-point win. I think they're extremely high on confidence. West Virginia, even after OU, not so much. You got to hit them in the mouth. I hate that cliche, but you got to punch them. They punch them early. This is a clear win, and it's a win that I think they could run away with.
All right, Paul, my final two questions for you, my two for the road. First things first, we're going to assume K-State does not slip up to either West Virginia or Kansas, and therefore goes to the Big 12 title game. As of today, TCU or K-State, which one are you picking?
If they play today, I take Kansas State, and I don't think I'd be alone in that. TCU is a team that knows how to win. They know how to win. They showed they can win a defensive game. They can win a 4-quarter shootout. They can come from behind. That's a special talent. I don't want to take it away from them. If they played today, I would take Kansas State. And guys, let's just think about this. We'll talk more about the Big 12 game coming up, and I've kind of referred to this a few times. If Kansas State is 9-3 and TCU is 12-0, Kansas State going into that game is guaranteed a New Year's Six bowl, because either TCU is 13-0 with a win and Kansas State's the second place team in the Big 12, and they will get the New Year's Six bid given to the Big 12 because TCU's in the playoffs, or Kansas State beats TCU and earns the Big 12's bid. So that's how much is on the line these last two games. They could backdoor their way in at 8-4, lose to Kansas, and then lose to TCU and they're out or whatever. But they need to be 9-3 going into that game, because if they are, they're going to a New Year's Six bowl. There's a lot to play for. It's not just about, hey, we're happy, we're going to play for a Big 12 title. There's a lot on the line these last few weeks.
There certainly is, Paul. My last one for you, our list today, best athlete nicknames. What is one of your favorite athlete nicknames of all time?
Oh, I mean, it's so easy because I think about this all the time. I will be randomly just like taking a walk and think about the greatest name of all time. The greatest athlete name of all time is Jared Lorenzen, the late, great Kentucky quarterback, the Pillsbury Throw Boy. There's nothing else that comes close. It's the Pillsbury Throw Boy. Like, I will be sleeping on a Tuesday night in April, and I'll wake up at 3:45 in the morning and start laughing. The Pillsbury Throw Boy. What else do we got? Am I airballing one? What do you guys got?
Listen, Pillsbury Throw Boy is up there for me. I think of the classics, and you got Sweetness with Walter Payton, you got Megatron with Calvin Johnson, but a fun one, the Pillsbury Throw Boy of the great hefty lefty Jared Lorenzen. That's a great callback there, Paul. That is perfect. Paul, thank you for being with us, my friend. We'll sit here and talk to you next week. Enjoy some Big 12 football on Saturday.
Thank you, guys. Talk next week.
That's Paul Myerberg. We got more of Mic'd Up coming up next. Welcome into Mic'd Up, hour number 2 here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you, riding solo today. Jake LeBon is off. He's enjoying a nice day to himself. He will be back with us tomorrow, so don't worry. If you're upset that it's just me doing it, you missed seeing Jake's shiny face, or any other reason, I only have 2. I was hoping that bit was going to go longer, but like all my bits, they die fast. He will be back with us tomorrow afternoon as we are here for Mic'd Up from noon to Thursday. We always are Monday through Friday here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. If you want to be part of the show, as always, you can text in Big O Tires text line 785-272-9429. Our list today, we're going to get to here in the next segment, as we always do around 1:20, is best athlete nicknames. And we've had some classics being brought up here. William the Refrigerator Perry, that's a good one. That's always a good one. Like, it might be on mine. It might be on Kyle's when we bring him in here for everyone knows the list. But it's a good one. Another one that's from the 785. Another one for the 785 brings up our good friend Babe Ruth, the Sultan of SWAT. That's a good one. Those are good classic ones. Paul Myerberg brought up one of the best ones that I wish I remembered it more. That the late, great Jared Lorenzen's nickname when he was playing football, both in the NFL and then the arena leagues, was the Pillsbury Throwboy, because he was a very large man playing quarterback. I always called him the Hefty Lefty, but Pillsbury Throwboy, also good. But Paul, of course, apparently thinking about that quite often. Also, do want to thank Paul Myerberg of USA Today for coming on and joining us for the show today. Kent Swanson, the KC Sports Network, he will join me at the bottom of this hour. He will join us. And then it's also my favorite time to remind you, you do not just have to listen to Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton or 580 Sports with Brendan and Dan. We are live on the YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, and all you fun folks out there. Yes, go to YouTube, find Sports on 580. If you just type that little search bar at the top, go to regular YouTube, type in Sports on 580. We should be like the first thing that comes up because I don't know what else is using our name at this point. First off, give us a subscribe, follow the page. We'd appreciate it. It helps. It'd be nice. But then you can watch all of our live shows. You can watch me live right now. If for whatever reason you want to watch the show, get a live video component with it, you can see me. The camera behind me has a little, as the glass, where you can see people walk by. You can see some of my coworkers walk by, see us go through and everything. See like what we're wearing every day for Brendan and Dan. What hats are they wearing most days? Since I cut my hair, I actually wear far less hats. So I'm sorry if, disappoints anyone. You don't get to see as much what my hat game is. But you can follow us on there. And also, another great part of it, you can jump in the comments. Get in the comments on our YouTube page. That's another way to get involved in the show. Give us your thoughts. Give us your ideas. Everything about that. Along with texting in on the Big O Tires text line 785-272-9429. But to lead off this hour, ESPN put out their list of what they call top potential free agents. And really the word potential is not that strong there because they're pretty much guys you're guaranteed to be free agents because they don't have a contract and they're not signing extensions. And they ranked the best 25 available players. Now, number one is very no surprise. It's Lamar Jackson. Because Lamar Jackson is in the last year of his rookie contract. Him and the Ravens did not come to an agreement, an extension, this offseason going into the preseason. And Lamar said, come week one, I'm not negotiating anymore. When it comes to being in season, it was like, I'm focused all on football. We'll do contracts after the season. So as of right now, Lamar Jackson is a free agent. Now, I will much like Jake will, because if Jake was here with us, he would shut down this part. If they don't re-sign him, they'll just franchise tag him. Now, granted, the franchise tag for a quarterback will be expensive because the franchise tag works. It takes the average of the top 3 salaries for a given year. I believe it's the year coming up, if not the year prior. Either way, it is the average of the top 3 salaries at the position. That means the quarterback franchise tag is going to like $30+ million for a single season if they do exercise and use it for Lamar Jackson. It does make it so much more expensive if the Ravens try to do that. Plus, they also had to re-sign Roquan Smith. So they have some contract decisions to make. But there are 2 Kansas City Chiefs in this list, and I want to bring them up both because we're going to take a minute and we're going to discuss what it would look like for the Chiefs to try and re-sign them and really how much of a priority it should be for the Chiefs to re-sign them. And then for one of these, I kind of want to break down why they're so high on this list. The number 2 potential free agent ESPN says is available is Orlando Brown Jr. Now, I have been a staunch Orlando Brown's not as bad as everyone thinks guy. I've kind of been in his corner, bolstered him up a little bit. But even I've noted, he struggled this season. As Jake and I have said, he's cost himself millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. But ESPN has him as the number 2 free agent option. And this is what they say, quote, on why he could get paid. Brown is a massive performer in the run game at 6'8", 340 pounds, and utilizes his frame to compensate for average foot and body quickness and pass protection. This season, Brown has registered a pass block win rate of 89.6% when blocking for Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. They also go on to say on if he were re-signed, quote, the Chiefs invested a lot of draft capital in acquiring Brown for the Ravens, so I expect them to re-sign him to a big money deal, even though he's probably not a top 5 offensive tackle in the NFL. Here's what I'll say. If the 2 sides can come to a common ground, Orlando Brown's staying in Kansas City. I want to make that part abundantly clear. The Chiefs are going to try and re-sign him. But to this idea that they're just, without a shadow of a doubt, going to give him a big deal, pay him like a top 5 offensive tackle, even if he hasn't earned it, I think this offseason showed they actually won't. Orlando Brown was seeking top 5, top 3 left tackle money this offseason. And the Chiefs basically said, no, we'll pay you. We'll pay you a lot. We'll make you like top 10. But you're not getting paid like a top 5 tackle. We're not going to do it. We're not going to let you reset the market. And given Brown's play, I know, ESPN, their pass block win rate metric, which is just quite simply how often do an offensive lineman win their one-on-one battle. I know it says Brown's almost at 90%, but watch him play. He has played better at times. He's played better as of late. But overall, it's not been the greatest experiment. He's definitely not a top 5 offensive tackle. I think he will command a decent amount of money, and maybe someone out there will overpay. I speak of this all the time. When you're in free agency and you're shopping for free agents, you're going to overpay because you're bidding for services, and at a certain point, you have to bid above market value to get what you want. You have to overpay because there's going to be like 8 teams all offering market value. So then it comes down to who offers more than market value. And that's where the idea and the concept of an overpay and things like that do come in. So I think he is definitely a priority for the Chiefs. They will try and re-sign him. I don't know if they want to go deeper into this, into the offensive line, have to kind of retool parts of it again, particularly with how hard it's been to get right tackle set up. I have to imagine the Chiefs would find a way to keep their left tackle at least. But who knows? You really don't know at that point what the Chiefs might try and do. But I'm of the belief they're going to find a way to re-sign Orlando Brown Jr. if they can. But I think the Chiefs have shown they're not going to break the bank for a player if they don't have to. That's what the Tyreek Hill trade was about. We have a limit. We have a line. We're not going to cross it just because you want us to. And I wonder at what point Orlando Brown becomes that as well. But then there is the more intriguing one, mainly because of what those at ESPN think. Juju Smith-Schuster is the 24th best potential available free agent, according to ESPN. And I would agree with that. I actually would put him higher. This is what they say about him, why he would get paid. Quote, Smith-Schuster is a physical player. He's a slot target with the ability to flex outside who can work the dirty areas of field. And he's more explosive than most believe, with a skill set to produce after the catch. Smith-Schuster has 46 catches for 615 yards and a pair of touchdowns this season and reached 900 receiving yards with 7 or more touchdowns in all 3 seasons in which he played at least 15-plus games. All that is the great reason why the Chiefs should try and re-sign him, why anyone should try to sign him. He has shown that if you have a real quarterback throwing to him, he'll play well. You know, we point out all the time, he was in a terrible situation the past few seasons. Had a great year in Pittsburgh in his sophomore season, 1,400 yards. Next year, he has Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph throwing in the football. What are you supposed to do? And the next few years after that, he has the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger, who I think I have a better arm than at this point. And trust me, my arm ain't that good throwing in the football. So that is what impacted his numbers. And so I think he's shown that you put him in a good situation and he'll perform actually quite well. But this is the part that intrigues me the most about ESPN's piece. Will he resign in Kansas City? Quote, Smith-Schuster can be productive, but with consistency concerns and injury history and limited ability to separate downfield, I don't believe Kansas City will resign. Politely, that is balderdash. That's complete crap. This is also why sometimes we tell you listen local to kind of pay attention to the nitty-gritty guys, because how could anyone watch this team and watch the way Juju's played, particularly as of late, and think the Chiefs wouldn't try and re-sign Smith-Schuster because he's performed well in this offense? And this is the other part I want people to remember. They tried to get Juju last year. They tried to get him to sign last year before he re-signed in Pittsburgh for a year. There's mutual interest here, particularly inside of the Kansas City Chiefs. So, this idea that, maybe the Chiefs wouldn't want to re-sign him. Maybe they want to do something different. Maybe they'll go with a different player. Maybe they'll try, something different wide receiver. No. I think they will try and re-sign him. And that's where actually I circle back to this idea that, he might miss this game coming up on Sunday. Most likely will. So we're going to see what this offense looks like without him. If the Chiefs offense struggles at all, it gives you even more of a reason this team should try and re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. I truly think the only reason Juju may not re-sign in Kansas City will come down to him being priced out of the market. That where the Chiefs want to sign him at is going to not be enough because he's going to perform so well that more teams are going to want to sign him. I mean, think about it. I gave you those list of wide receivers that were free agents. Nelson Aguilar, DJ Shark, Marvin Jones, Sterling Shepard. Would you really take any of those guys over Juju? Really? Like that's where we're at here. Is I think, and this is not to bash on ESPN any of their work. They do what they do. They're a big company and leaders in sports for a reason. They do put out good work. But I think it's a little disingenuous to say the Chiefs probably won't even try to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster because the partnership is working. As we've seen, the partnership works. Juju is a good target for Patrick Mahomes. He's played well. He's done the job he needs to do in being a target over the middle of the field. And more importantly, he's starting to pick up on that sixth sense that Mahomes and Kelsey have of when they face zone coverage, that just find the soft spot and sit. And Mahomes will find you. Well, Juju's picking up on that. And if you have two of those, if you have Kelsey and Juju to do that, this offense is so hard to stop. That's where Juju is so important in what he does. And so, will it be easy to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster? Probably not. I have to imagine, because if Juju plays the way he's been playing, I mean, as long as he doesn't miss too much time, he still could be a 1,000-yard receiver. Well, I mean, if you look at all the wide receivers available, Juju is infinitely the best option. Like, there's no one much better. I mean, going into this list here that they have for best free agent options, like, if you're scanning and scanning and scanning and scanning for wide receivers, I mean, the first one you come to is Jacoby Myers in New England. That's, they say, is 21st. 21st best option is Jacoby Myers. You're really going to take Jacoby Myers over Juju Smith-Schuster? Myers has done some good work. This is no shame and no disrespect intended Jacoby Myers' way. But I would call Juju the better player. He's played better. But I mean, Jacoby Myers is what he's fighting with, because then you go to Juju. I mean, they're the only two wide receivers on this list of potential best options. With that idea, that's where the idea comes to of if the Chiefs are going to have an issue re-signing him, it's going to come down to high demand for low supply. Not to get too economical in here about how the economic models work. Trust me, I also didn't study that at school. But there's a lot of demand for Juju and only one Juju. That's going to raise his price. And I think that will be the number one barrier to re-signing Juju Smith-Schuster. But I do think, though, he should be the Chiefs' number 2 priority in the offseason. I think Orlando Brown is still the number 1 priority for the Chiefs to re-sign this offseason. Because with all the turnover you've dealt with, and more importantly, with the options you have at offensive line, I don't know if you want to take a gamble. If you can get him for a reasonable price, I think you stick with Brown. But I also will harshly disagree with anyone who says he's guaranteed to get paid like a top 5 offensive lineman. He won't. The Chiefs have made it clear with what they dealt with in the offseason that they will not pay Orlando Brown just to pay Orlando Brown. They won't do it. It's not what they do. They're going to find a way to make it work and find a way to either keep him at their price or they will find a backup plan. Trust me, there are other offensive linemen on the market. There were some in this list. They could go with over Orlando Brown for possibly a cheaper price if someone's willing to back up the Brinks truck at a player who honestly probably doesn't deserve to have the Brinks truck backed up too. But what you've ever done with Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, if you can find a way, that guy's got to stay in Kansas City. Because, man, watching him play with this team, he is a natural fit for what the Chiefs want to do offensively and what they have been doing offensively this year. It is a perfect marriage for both teams. There's going to be interest on both sides. Hopefully, they can come to some sort of agreement when we hit the offseason and we go into that free agent period. We're going to take a timeout here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, everyone loves the list. Top athlete nicknames. We'll give you some of our favorites here coming up. Time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up. And for that, I bring in our good friend Kyle Manthe to help me out here with Jake being out of the show today. Kyle, today's list. Top athlete nicknames inspired by the very hilarious fake nicknames we often see on Pro Football Reference and different things like that. So, Kyle, my man, what is your number 4 top athlete nickname?
Well, first, I just gotta say, this might be one of the hardest lists to come up with.
This is tough,
because
right?
There's so many.
Yes!
It's nearly impossible.
There are so many good ones. We have the for the text line. I'll get to you guys. That's why I'm going to say, this is just what we like. This is in no way a true definitive ranking what we say. But, Kyle, what you got for number 4, my man?
Number 4 for me, I'm a sucker for rhymes, so I'm going with Dick Night Train Lane.
Yes!
I can't say I ever watched him play. A little too young for that, but that's just such a great nickname.
Night Train Lane, truly fantastic before our times. But no, Night Train Lane, truly a fantastic option here. Number 4 for me, actually, the Bigger Tires text line had this with me. For me, nicknames that are synonymous with the person, you almost want to use it as a replacement for their first name or where we're really key here. Good old Broadway Joe Namath. You bust out the way he was looking there, guaranteeing the Super Bowl win. Broadway Joe is a great nickname because if you hear Joe Namath, you immediately just want to call him Broadway Joe. It's perfect. It works. It fits.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 for me, basically the exact same thing, just with basketball. Julius Erving, Dr. J.
That's a good one. Spoiler alert, it's not on my list, but that's an honorable mention for me. Dr. J, that's a very good one. Number 3 for me, primetime Deion Sanders. He goes by Coach Prime. Like, it's so synonymous that it's primetime. And just the personality, the way he carried himself, it fit. And so primetime's up there for me.
Number 2 for me, taking a step up from synonymous, names that have grown to like replace the person's name. So I got a tie for a bunch of them. I got Magic Johnson, Tiger Woods, Spud Webb, I learned. Not his real name.
Yeah.
So any name like that, number 2 for me.
I just love just a gigantic tie at 2. Any of the other places that. Number 2 for me, it just fit the player and the way he played. Megatron for Calvin Johnson. Truly just Megatron. It's awesome.
That's a very cool nickname. Number 1 for me, I got primetime Deion Sanders. It's too fitting. It fits too well. Too cool.
It does. It fits. It's cool. It's fantastic. Number 1 for me is a very simple one. It is Charles Peanut Tillman. And there's a few reasons why I like Peanut so much. 1, you just call the grown man Peanut on the field. 2, and this is where a reason I love Peanut Tillman so much, at least in the nickname aspect, he was such a good football player. Punching a football out to cause a fumble is called a peanut punch. Like, he has a move named after him now, synonymous with his nickname. That's why, for me, Peanut Tillman is so fantastic going forward as arguably the best athlete nickname of all time. You can let us know in the comments and on the Bigger Tires text line. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, Kent Swanson will join us here for a little bit of chatting about the Chiefs. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Man, talking athlete nicknames was fun. A great one for the Big O Tires text line. My father would be happy that people are still bringing this up from the 785. The Intimidator for Dale Earnhardt Sr. My dad, the biggest racing fan I possibly know, loved Dale Earnhardt. He would be happy that even gets a mention on air. So very much shout out to that texter. Trust me, that's a good one as well. But now to talk all things Kansas City Chiefs, we're bringing our good friend Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network. Does a lot of great written work, does great podcasting coverage for the KC Sports Network. All great stuff over there. You can follow Kent on Twitter at Kent_Swanson. Kent, my friend, how are you doing on this lovely Thursday afternoon?
Oh, I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, always happy to have you on, my man. Obviously, the Chiefs are a big starter point right now, and let's start with the wide receivers, because I think that's where a lot of some of the focus is going to be on, at least this week and maybe going forward, all these different subplots and storylines. Juju Smith-Schuster, possibly, and I would say probably, not going to play coming up on Sunday. McCole Hardman, he might not play on Sunday. So your wide receiver, at least leading trio, could be Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, and Sky Moore, who are likely your 3 top receivers for next season. How comfortable would you feel if that's the trio really leading the charge from the wide receiver standpoint coming up here against LA on Sunday night?
Well, and there's a chance Marquez Valdez-Scantling isn't able to go either. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. Confidence level, I mean, there's just no way Patrick Mahomes can do anything without Tyreek Hill. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, right? So, we've seen this before. Obviously, there's been some questions about, Mahomes and his ability to carry an offense with fill in the name, right? But, I think you've seen enough out of Kadarius Toney to believe that he could carry a bigger workload. And, don't forget, there's still some really quality pass catchers outside of the wide receiver room too. Jerick McKinnon led the team in targets last week against the Jaguars. So, there's some guys in the aggregate that I think can really help that passing offense still have a lot of success, even if they are missing a lot of receivers. Now, maybe not consistently for the course of the season, but yeah, I think that they can get away with a game, show some stuff, maybe with some heavier personnel with the tight ends, get the running backs involved a little bit more. I think they'll be fine.
If it is the case, and I'm also right there with you. I think at this point we've seen it on Patrick Mahomes is no matter who he has catching the football, that guy can make a lot of guys better and really make an offense go. If it ends up being kind of this more hodgepodge receiver room, and you're right, there's a lot of guys who get the pass catching slack on the running backs with McKinnon and tight ends with Kelsey and Gray and Fortson and guys like that. With the receivers, if it ends up being this smaller group, is there anything specific you would like to see that at least might give you a little bit of idea of what this team will do next year at the wide receiver spot? Maybe use this as kind of a, I guess, for lack of a better word, audition moment for these, lesser known wide receivers with, honestly, only 3 guys under contract for next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit tricky to try to get a true representation of all these guys moving forward for the future, just because, if you're looking at the pieces that are existing on the roster, like, yes, you've got, say MVS plays. You got MVS, you've got Sky Moore, you've got, Kadarius Toney. I don't know how many of those guys, or if any of those guys are really filling the X receiver role too much. So you're kind of looking at an incomplete structure of players. Like, I think this team needs a player that can play the X. Juju Smith-Schuster has been really good at that. So, you might be able to get some ideas if the plan for this week is, hey, we're going to play Travis Kelce more as your X receiver. They do it a lot anyway. So maybe he's, kind of the X receiver this week, playing isolated on the backside of formations. And you can kind of get an idea of what Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling can do together. You might be able to get some inclinations there, but I still think it's going to be a little bit limited and a little bit tricky to get too much of a taste of a future outside of individual performances from Toney specifically.
That's completely fair. And speaking of Kadarius Toney here, this is a guy that when he was acquired, a lot of the Chiefs kingdom was either very excited about, very about, or somewhere in the middle. I know Jake and myself, we were like, man, if he can get, 100 receiving yards and 12 catches, over the course of the entire season, we would think, oh, this is a major success for year one. He's already basically at that in a couple of games here. Have you been surprised at how quickly Toney's been integrated into this offense? And just, is this the case of he's picking things up real quickly, or Andy Reid and company are just really trying to make sure he gets used?
I think it's probably more of the first thing. Like, I do think that there's probably been a little bit of a surprise of what this guy's capable of doing, and there's kind of a little bit of mystery shrouded around this whole Kadarius Toney situation, him coming in. There's the injury concerns. There's, some of the character concerns. I mean, there's some character stuff coming out of college and the draft too. So, like, there's a lot of questions about him, coming in here. And there's probably better context that they had within the building. But I think they figured out pretty quickly, this guy's smart. This guy's capable of doing a lot. It looks like by all indications, Travis Kelce's podcast, for instance, a lot of excitement, optimism, a lot of compliments about Kadarius Toney with his mental, ability. He's a smart football player. He's been a great teammate. He's working hard. Patrick Mahomes says he's been in the building as much as him. So I think it's probably a testament to Kadarius Toney, taking this opportunity for a a refresh and running with it, literally and figuratively.
You talk about Tony really, taking this opportunity and running with it here. We've talked about this a lot. Is anything of Tony basically leapfrogging Sky Moore on the depth chart and in the usage? Is any of that an indictment on Sky Moore, or is this just more of it takes a while for a young guy to not only get acclimated to the NFL, but also to an Andy Reid scheme?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, but like I would tend to say, like, I don't think Sky Moore's lack of volume and opportunity this year's too damning for him. I think it's hard to pick up this offense. And I think there was probably, if there wasn't a Kadarius Toney acquisition, there might have been some more opportunities and some more intentionality to get Sky Moore even more involved within this offense in the second half of the season, much like you're kind of seeing with Isaiah Pacheco, right? He was slow to start the season, but now he's really coming on strong, and they're starting to lean on him a little bit more. So, Kadarius Toney might have eaten into some of these opportunities. I also think there probably has been at some point a plan to get him a lot more involved. So it's probably a little bit of both. And I think there's going to be some moments for Sky left in this season. There's still a lot of football to play left, and it is notoriously difficult to get involved in a Chiefs Andy Reid offense, especially, considering you look at, there's a lot of guys kind of ahead of him. I think even like the correlation between like him and McCole Hardman. McCole Hardman found a role early. There wasn't a lot of competition for him. There wasn't like Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson aren't too difficult to break, to get out of. So I think there's a lot of context to the Sky Moore. You kind of open up Pandora's box. There's a lot of context to that whole situation for me personally.
I'm fully with you there, Ken, when it comes to Sky. I know there are a small sect of people out there that would put this, it means something he's not playing. But to me, it's hard for a guy to get committed to this type of an offense and to be a rookie as well, doubly so. Sticking with the offense and the young guys here, Isaiah Pacheco had his easily best and most involved game of his career against Jacksonville. 16 carries, over 80 rushing yards. What do you think of is he for sure now? Do you think he takes more of a bell cow, really true starter's workload at the running back spot? And then just more specifically, he fumbled there early and the Chiefs went right back to them. Does that speak a lot to what the Chiefs see in Pacheco being their running back for the future?
Yes. But it's also not out of character for Andy Reid either. If you look at Kareem Hunt's first game ever in Kansas City, fumbled, I believe, the first touch of his entire career, and then went on to have a career game against the New England Patriots in the run game and the pass game. So it's one thing I think Andy Reid does really well. Some of these guys, especially in a game like the Jaguars, is the Chiefs had control of that game the entire time, even when the Jaguars tried the onside kick. They went right back to him. They gave him that opportunity. That's a good thing for confidence, and Andy Reid showing confidence in that kid. And Isaiah Pacheco rewarded him. He ran really hard the rest of the game. He was running hard before, but he held onto the football, protected the ball, played his best game as a professional. So, I think there's intentionality to get him in a big role for the remainder of the season. And I think this week was a huge step in a lot of different ways for him being involved in this offense further.
No, I really like seeing what it is, and that's a great point. That even when Kareem Hunt fumbled his first touch as an NFL player, Reid just goes back to his guys, and I think you're right. It's a good quality. It is a trait that Andy Reid truly has. Looking at this Jaguars game from an offensive perspective, overall the team played incredibly well. There were a couple of turnovers. We talked about the Pacheco fumble. Mahomes also threw an interception on a pass he kind of forced a little bit. Overall, how would you assess how well the offense looked against the Jaguars defense that is not necessarily notable in how well they play, but are definitely no slouches? And overall, it seemed like the Chiefs kind of did what they wanted to, even if it might not have been the flashiest and most explosive game.
I think it was just a good workmanlike win across the board. And, I think the Jaguars are better than their record. And I think the Chiefs just played a really solid football game, and that was enough to beat that team comfortably. They took care of business. They ran the ball a little better. They were pretty solid in the passing game. They made some consistent drives when they needed to. And then they just kind of tried to run the clock out a little bit in the second half, honestly. Just kind of tried to manage that game a little bit. Didn't show too much. I don't think they were, I don't think they were throwing too much at the Jaguars that they don't want other teams to see on tape. So, it was just a really solid workmanlike performance. And, I think it's the least flashy win the Chiefs have had. I think it's the most, um, probably the least memorable game of the entire season. But honestly, as a Chiefs fan, I kind of feel like it was nice to have a little bit of a breath there.
Listen, I will never complain about a game with the Chiefs where I'm not having my heart racing at 30 miles an hour and feeling like I need to go to the hospital because this team stresses me out so much in a close game and trying to get a close win. Going over to the defensive side here, Kent, the Chiefs had gotten gashed on the run for a couple consecutive weeks. Travis Etienne walked in and had 3 straight 100-yard rushing games prior to that matchup. Travis Etienne only has 45 yards on 11 carries in that game. How would you assess how the Chiefs' run defense did to kind of step up against an honestly fairly talented young running back in Etienne, at least what he's showing so far?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have started to make some adjustments in the run game that I think are kind of helping them. They're playing, a 4-3 under front, so kind of giving them a five-man front kind of look with a stand-up linebacker. So there's some stuff that they're doing in the run game, schematically to try to kind of help there. And I think they're having some success. They've been a lot better in their run since they've been playing a little bit of a bear front, little 5-man, or 4-3 under kind of look. So, schematically, they've made some adjustments there. And I think that's encouraging. I don't know what the Joel Cohen influence is entirely, the defensive line coach for the Chiefs. It does feel, though, like they've been a little bit more adaptable this year. They've been a little bit more flexible. They're a little bit more willing to, line Chris Jones up over the weak spot and just, kind of pepper that matchup. So I've really liked some of the adjustments that this team has made up front over time. And hey, they're getting Frank Clark back, which I think has been a really solid player this year. That's going to help them. So I think the arrow's pointing up in a lot of different ways on the Chiefs' defense line, their run game, or run defense. I'm pretty encouraged right now with that.
Sticking with this defense here, this was our first real look at Trent McDuffie and getting a shot at him to really play a full game against a team that will launch the ball down the field. And he had a couple of nice plays there on some pass defense and some pass breakups there. How would you assess Trent McDuffie and his action against the Jaguars now that we're really finally getting a good look at the Chiefs' top first-round pick this year?
I know it's early. We haven't seen him a ton, but I think Trent McDuffie might be the best pick in Brett Veach's tenure. He's so good. He's so good. And the football instincts, the athleticism, the physicality that he plays with, even though he's not the biggest guy. So many positive indicators and so many positive things that we've seen in a small sample size around this kid. I think he's played outstanding. There were some concerns with him. It really wasn't a ton of concerns. I mean, we had him. We do a draft guide every year. We do a book, and he was in our top 15 players in this draft last year. And the only concerns that we really had about him were arm length. I mean, he's an outlier when it comes to arm length. He has sub 30-inch arms. Guys with sub 30-inch arms, there haven't been very many taken in day one historically, and there hasn't been a ton of successful guys with shorter arms. So to see him go out there and be able to not make that length an issue at all at the catch point. Some teams, both the Titans and the Jaguars, tried to challenge down the field against Trent McDuffie, with his arm length and try to put a big receiver on him. And he's been very competitive at the catch point. He's made it difficult on receivers to try to win in those downfield situations. So even the things that were bringing concern don't appear to be big problems for him. He's played outstanding. Arrows pointing up. I love watching that guy play football. I think he has the potential to be a star.
Listen, Ken, I am the last guy who's ever going to tell you to temper expectations on Trent McDuffie. He is easily by far already my favorite pick of the Brett Veach area. Let's move to this game coming up here on Sunday night. It's on the road. It's in SoFi Stadium against the Chargers. The Chargers are dinged up. They might be finally getting a little bit healthier, or they, like many teams, are just going to try and push their health the best they can to put all the chips on the table here with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both trying to get back in that game. We sit here and at times maybe, I guess, bag on the Chargers or note some of the things that they do poorly or when they're kind of having down moments. And is this a Chargers team that is just once again underperforming with the injury bug and all of this? Just What do you make of this year's Chargers team to this point?
Oh man, how long you got?
Maybe 8 minutes max.
I don't. There's so many little things. Like I don't think at this point the injury bug is not luck. So something's there with the injury stuff. This team can't stay healthy. I don't know if it's just flawed, a lack of dedication to the medicals. When they're doing their work on players. So your best ability is availability, and a lot of Chargers don't have that ability. Schematically, they've neutered Justin Herbert in a big way. I don't know, Justin Herbert, a little bit of regression. I think, he's not challenging down the field as much as we've seen him. He's not being as consistent down the field as we've seen him, and he's very quick to throw the ball into the flat. And whether that's not trusting his offensive line, obviously, at times not trusting his receivers because, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were out last week, for instance. There's a lot of little things that are just adding up for this football team. I think there's reason to be concerned about Brandon Staley too, as a coach. It's not just the fourth down decision making; it's how prepared are his teams, how physically ready are they to play, and how does he navigate, some of the injury issues that they are having. I don't think they've done a good job of next man up. So I think there's a lot of structural issues with that organization, and I think they show up on the field. And I think there's some flaws with the players that we're starting to see too.
That's about where I'm at with this Chargers team as well. Ken, you hit the nail on the head with it. Final two questions for you, two for the road here. First things first. Chris Jones, is he your defensive player of the year, or is there someone ahead of him?
He's up there. I don't think I'd put him in the top 5. I think at this point where he's at, I think a strong second half of the year could really vault him, and I think he's kind of on the upward trend.
That's about where I am at with him as well. I don't know if I give him the award just yet, but he's up there with me. It's just how well he's been playing another second half against the Jags. It was so great. And my last thing for you, Kent, what is this Chiefs' final record when the regular season ends?
Give me 14-3. I think they make one more slip up, and we'll find out if that's enough for them to get the 1 seed. But give me 14-3.
That's about where I'm at. I think there's maybe one more loss on this schedule, and heck, it might be that last game against the Raiders because they're sitting everybody, and because they already got the 1 seed locked up. You never know, but 14-3 is about where myself and even Jake are at as well. Kent, thank you so much, my friend, for joining us. Have yourself a great weekend, and hopefully we can both be enjoying a Chiefs victory coming up on Sunday night.
Hey, man, you too. Enjoy it.
That is Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network. Always great to have Kent on chatting with us. I'm with him on the Chargers, though. Like, outside of just what this game is going to be, and Jake and I are going to break that down. We'll give you our keys and everything tomorrow. At least when it comes to the injury specifically, there's something they're doing wrong. I'm at the point they're not cursed anymore. They're just doing something wrong. And whether that is they don't have proper medical histories on guys, whether that's an issue in the medical department, the strength and conditioning department, I don't know. But at some point, with it happening this often and this consistently, there's something wrong with that organization as a whole. But overall, Chargers going to Charger. That'll do it for this hour of Mic'd Up. Coming on the 2 o'clock hour for the coordinators, Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo. Welcome into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW, the final hour of today's show with just me. Fulton caster Jake Labon is off. He'll be back with us tomorrow. So don't worry. It's just one day with me. He'll be back with us tomorrow for all the great things we have going on, including our Chiefs keys to the game. And it's World Cup season, folks. For those of you that care. I do. Jake does. The World Cup begins on Sunday. Did everyone know that? The World Cup in Qatar begins on Sunday. Qatar plays somebody. I'll be brutally honest. I don't know who they play off the top of my head. I just know, as always, the host nation plays the first game of the World Cup every year. So, well, every 4 years. Whenever it's held. Y'all know what I'm saying. So I know that they are going to be playing coming up here on Sunday. And now I have to look at who they're playing. They're playing Ecuador. Qatar and Ecuador, that is the beginning game of the World Cup, their group stage. That's happening on Sunday at 10 a.m. So, a little pre-football action. Watch a different kind of football. That's what you should do. I don't know. It's if you want to. But the USA, for those that care, the USA men's national team on Monday the 21st at 1 o'clock. So, sadly, during our lovely program of Mic'd Up here, the USA will take on Wales in their first group stage matchup. Jake and I are going to be invested. We'll give you updates on Monday afternoon as Mic'd Up rolls along. The Americans will then play on Friday. They play England. And then on the 29th, they will play Iran. Those are the three group stage matchups for the Americans. That's where we focused on mainly. But, hey. At least I will. If you want to be on the Big Guitars text line, 785-272-9429, or in our YouTube comments on Sports on 580, where you can watch the live stream of Mic'd Up and 580 Sports Talk. If there's a particular country you care about and you don't know where their score is as they're playing, text in. I'll look for you. I'll look it up. I care enough. I can't promise Jake will. I cannot promise Jake will. I will look it up. Jake and I do, though, both love the World Cup. It's the only time I think Jake ever cares about soccer, and I like it on other occasions as well. I've started getting into it. But the World Cup kicks off on Sunday, so we will have Paul Carr. He will join us on tomorrow's show to give a little World Cup preview. So for you soccer heads out there, you hooligans, listen to the show tomorrow. We're going to get some rare soccer action here on 580 WIBW. But this hour, we will begin by listening to the coordinators. Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo met with the media. Then coming up, we will take a look at the Chiefs wide receivers and our Thursday Night Football same-game parlay. Jake has sent his to me. Jake has sent his parlay to me. I have it. I will give you Jake's and his thoughts on it. He gave me some thoughts. And then I'll give you my Thursday Night Football same-game parlay as well as we continue to try and beat those guys over at 580 Sports Talk to see who can truly be the best at crafting same-game parlays. But without further ado, we're going to begin listening to Steve Spagnuolo. Here's what the defensive coordinator had to say earlier today.
I have anything to say. I'm going to jump in. The only thing that came to mind this morning that I did want to say was I was really proud of the unit in the very first series. That's covered the onside kick, and usually that can go all back. That's 3 points or whatever. To get them to put the football was really good. Got some sometimes.
Having some technical difficulties on our program today. Don't know why we were having those issues. We'll get those sorted coming up here. So give us just one moment. We'll get those things sorted. So sorry about that coming up here on the program. It's what you love about live radio, folks. You never know when you're going to have technical issues and when you have very different things going on for your program here, as we'll try and get listening to defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo and get his thoughts and options and ideas coming up on the show here today, listening in on this program. We'll start and, work the gremlins out of the system, so to speak, try and get them figured out going forward about what we need to try and do to get them ready. But without further ado, here is what Steve Spagnuolo had to say earlier today.
I don't have anything to say. I'm going to jump in. The only thing that came to mind to me this morning that I did want to say was I was really proud of the unit in the very first series of the game last week. That's not easy. They recovered the onside kick, and usually that can go a little bit and it's 3 points or whatever. But to get them to punt the football, I thought was really good. We've got some other things we need to clean up, but I thought that was sometimes that goes unnoticed because it happens so early in the game. But all right, having said that, I'll open it up.
Colin Saunders really seems to be kind of coming into his own.
Yeah.
Where does he fit into the mix? Are you trying to get him more reps?
Yeah, Joe and I talked about that. I think his play tick went up from I know in this last game, and we had talked about that during the preparation week last week. Yeah, he certainly deserves that. You're right. He's played well. He stands out. Of course, anytime you get a sack, everybody starts to notice. But he's done a lot of other good things in the run game that have really helped us. But I like the way Colin has progressed and played this year.
You had 5 sacks, 3 of them came from the defensive line. I mean, you feel like you're getting more from just the
Yeah.
4, and maybe don't have to be quite as.
Yeah, I mean, I've felt that all along. I don't count the sacks as much as I count the pressures. And I tell you what's just as important, and I just read somewhere what George has a bunch of them, is those pass breakups are huge. There was one, the very first third down in this pass game. I think it was the first one, third down. They ran a route that kind of made it challenging on the coverage that we were in. It was kind of wide open. And if George doesn't knock it down, it's at least the first down. And then it might have been on that first drive, the one I was just talking about. So that was huge. So at any rate, am I happy that we're getting sacks? Yeah, because it's negative play. But as long as we continue to pressure the quarterback, hit them, get pass breakups, make sure that they're incompletions and not completions, I'm good with that.
What did you learn about Jalen and not having Trent? The same type of thing, these 2 games without Frank. What do you think you learned about some of the other? In the sense of with Trent being out, you learned what Watson can do. What did you learn about the defensive linemen that kind of filled in for Frank?
I got you. Yeah. Well, listen, Malik. I thought Malik had a couple of good plays. He doesn't get as many reps because Joe's rotating. You've got Carlos and you've got George, and Mike Dana, who are always in there. And Mike Dana had a solid game. But in answer to your question, we've learned a lot about Malik that we wouldn't maybe not have known had he been inactive in every game. But I thought he played the run real well. He's not in there in as many third down passing situations, but I like the way Malik has progressed.
How eager are you to have Frank back?
Yeah, I mean, we like Frank's juice, and he gives us something off of the edge. And I thought he was kind of finding a groove, before he hit the suspension. And I just hope he can get back into that. Sometimes you got to knock a little bit of rust off, but hopefully there won't be a lot of rust to knock off.
This is a couple of really strong performances back-to-back against some good run-heavy teams.
Mm.
What have you kind of learned about your run defense?
Yeah, I do know this. I mean, I was really impressed with the Tennessee. I know, I think it was the second quarter, got a little bit shaky, but I talked about that this week. When our mindset is right, and as a unit collectively, we say we're going to stop this. We're not going to let them do that. We've got some good leaders in that regard. I think we can do that. This week it might be a little bit different challenge because they got all kinds of threats and another really good quarterback. But yeah, happy with the way we played the run.
Coach, talking about that quarterback, in their first couple of seasons, a lot of people would really compare Patrick Mahomes to Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
He hasn't obviously had those pretty post-game runs like Mahomes has, but that's a guy you don't work with every day in practice, but your defense sees every day.
Yeah.
Do you see the comparison between them in terms of passing, or?
I'll be honest with you. I've never thought of it in that terms.
Really?
I really haven't. I mean, I just see every quarterback differently, and I know we go against a good one all year long in OTAs and training camp and all that. I just really haven't done that, for me to sit here and speculate. We're just defending number 10. Thank God not number 15, right? And I think he's pretty good. I mean, look he can do anything you're going to ask a quarterback to do. I think he's managing the game real well in our game, because you go back and look at him. He got protections right. He gets the ball out really quick. He's a big guy. He's hard to bring down. It was last year. The years run together here, but I know Nick, had him down the goal line. You couldn't even get the guy down. He gets it off because it was last year, right? So I got a lot of respect for him.
This group that you're facing, they had a reputation of going for a lot of fourth downs and things like that. You guys have faced a lot of fourth downs.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville didn't really test you that way last week. Do you know week to week? Because when you guys faced the Chargers earlier this year, it didn't seem like they were that mode again.
Maybe not as many as they had done the year before, right? I'll tell you what, we always plan for them for a couple of different reasons. It's the kind of the wave of the league, and certainly in certain situations. And I think, if you're on the other sideline, I know some of our thinking would be keep number 15 off the field as much as you can, right? And one way to do it is to kind of earn another first down. So we plan on them. We've got 2 scheduled in practice today that I just talked to the guys about. So, and we talk about fourth down on Tuesday of every week. It's one of the first things we do.
A couple more.
What challenges? Mike Williams, it seems like you guys have had good coverage on him, but he goes up and wrestles the ball away. Is there
he's
a different approach to take?
Put 3 guys on him instead of 2. We talked about it this morning. Dave and I did. There's a couple different ways to double a guy. And yet you can't double him on every play. And at some point, some guys got to battle, and we just got to find. He's such a strong, he's so strong with his hands, and even when you're in great position, it was early in the game here last time we played him. Jalen was in really good shape, and Mike kind of outmuscled a little bit. But maybe haven't seen him. Our young guys haven't seen him already once. Maybe that'll help. Trent hasn't seen him yet, so we'll see how that goes. But our guys will fight. I know that, and we're playing against a really good receiver, so hopefully we can win more than we lose on that.
You mentioned Trent. He's been back a couple weeks now. How impressed are you from him after he's missed so much time?
Yeah, I tell you, he's really sharp. And I remember talking to Coach Lake before the draft about a couple of plays he had, and Trent was one of them. And he mentioned that he didn't skip a beat in terms of the mental part of it. It took a little bit to get going. He had the one play that they got him on. I think he'll tell you that he probably looked for the ball too early, but he was stride for stride with them, and he had a couple other key pass breakups that were huge in the game. So I was real happy the way he played. I'm glad we got him.
Really unique challenge. Is there a key to Eckler and defending him? You got to be careful about over pursuing and so on.
Yeah, it's and as much as his run part of it is his throwing, right? He's become obviously a favorite was always a favorite of the quarterbacks, but when they had a couple of guys down, his tick as far as targets went way up. A guy that we're concerned about, a guy we've talked about, we'll work third down today, and number 30 is going to be first thing I put up on yesterday morning was everybody needs to know where 30 is, linemen included. That's how much we respect and know how good he is.
That is defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo speaking earlier today. Spags, a lot of good stuff there, and particularly dealing with Justin Herbert. It's always an interesting task to try and deal with Herbert, who I know what Kent and I discussed it just at the end of last hour there, not pushing the ball down the field as much, but still a very talented quarterback. The offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, spoke as well. Here's what EB had to say earlier today.
Hope all is well with everybody. Hopefully everybody's having a great week so far. Feels good coming off a pretty good team victory just from this past weekend. I thought our guys did a heck of a job, but now our focus is on this AFC West opponent, who's a very good one at that. All right. With all that said, I'm all ears. Did you go to Vanderbilt?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I had that. The first thing I saw black and gold. So, I was thinking Colorado. I'm like, oh, he would Vanderbilt.
Coach, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is, Clyde hasn't had as many carries and the snaps have gone down. But I was up in the press box last week, and after Isaiah had fumbled the ball, I looked down with my binoculars and I saw Clyde coaching him up a little bit, telling him to keep his head in the game. What does that say about your group of guys that a guy who is not getting the carries, who's a first-round pick, was there for a guy emotionally on the sideline after he had a big play or a bad play like that?
Well, we always, one of our biggest things, we always want to get the best people who happen to be the best football players. And so team chemistry goes a long way. Clyde is one of those guys. Now, obviously, he hasn't had very many opportunities as of late, but he's still a part of this team. And he understands how important it is to making sure that backs keep their confidence level up. And I mean, he's had his unfortunate incidents, that have happened in the past. And one thing that we don't shy away from, we want those guys to understand mistakes happen. We don't want them to happen very often, but they happen. Life happens. Now, we're not just going to put you to the side. Now get back out there and show what you can do to get you to regain your confidence. So, but it just goes to show you not only just the chemistry and the people that we have, but also just the culture in which has been established here.
Understanding every game's going to be different. You guys rushed 19 times. You mentioned wanting to rush it more. You think that around 15 to 25 is a sweet spot for your offense?
We could push it up a little bit more, but don't tell Coach Reed. But we always want to do what is best for our team when it's all said and done with. Yes, we do need to run it, okay? And I thought we did a good job of putting our guys in position, but also making sure that we were calling them and giving them the opportunity to go out and play and establish the run game. So that's something that we just got to continue to do and continue to grow with moving forward.
Eric, Patrick leads the league right now in pass attempts out of the pocket. Because there's so many new guys, obviously, on the skill position level in the offense, just how much have you felt like the receivers have sort of adjusted to, obviously, Patrick's play style, and then what have you tried to sort of, I guess, accentuate beyond just what's drawn on the board for that particular play?
Well, that all started during the offseason. Pat's a firm believer in developing chemistry with the group of guys. And so those guys spent a lot of time together this offseason. And they spent a lot of time together in the building when required to be here. But on top of that, these guys, they work at it. And when you have that chemistry, the only thing that you want to do is making sure that you're always on the same page. So if there's anything that Pat wants to approach and discuss, he'll make sure that we'll have this discussion about it with the players and making sure that they're all on the same page. And hey, if this happens, I happen to scramble outside the pocket, we have certain rules for those guys to adjust. I think they've done a heck of a job of adjusting it. Just like I said earlier, we have good chemistry. We got good people who are good football players. So the communication, is something that is very important. Those guys do a great job of talking to each other on a continual basis, not just on the field, but also in the classroom. And they spend a lot of time off the field together. So that helps.
Is there a best example in the game this year where the rules were correct, the adjustment was right, the chemistry was put in place, or is there something even in the film room that sort of, further explains all of that? I
mean, there's been a number of times that he scrambled. Who did we play a couple of weeks ago? Clyde slides and makes a play. Noah tips one up and makes a play. So there's been so many of them over the past few weeks. These guys understand exactly where they're supposed to fit. And they also understand that, hey, if he's basically going a certain direction, guys are responsible for being in certain areas on the field. And Pat does a great job. And we've said this before in the past. He has that pilot vision. He can pick you up, and see you and find the open receiver, which those guys know, hey, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, when he breaks contain and he's on the loose, he will find me if I'm available.
I did the majority of the reps in last week's game. Is it safe to say that you guys are kind of going away from the running back like me?
That's not safe to say at all. All of those guys are going to play. And I thought he did a heck of a job last week. I also thought Jerick McKinnon did a heck of a job. That just goes to show you just the depth that we have at that position. But on top of that, it goes to show you that Greg Lewis has done a hell of a job. Those guys are playing their tails off. And obviously, we're going to always roll with the hot hand. And I know that's something that a lot of people don't like to hear. But we always want to do what we feel is best in that particular moment. Now, are we neglecting anyone? No, because those guys know that they have to be ready when called upon. It was just like I had a discussion with our players yesterday. Always tell them, make sure that you're maximizing the opportunities in the classroom, on the field, in the weight room, and in the training room, because we're at that time of the year where injuries happen. So you may be called upon throughout the course of a game to define your greatness. The question is, when those opportunities present themselves, have you mentally and physically prepared yourself for those particular moments? And so those are the things that we stress, and our coaching staff are harping on that, and that's the things that they have to be ready for.
Are you at all aware during the game that maybe Clyde hasn't been getting any work, or Pacheco hasn't been getting any work, or whatever the case might be?
Oh yeah, there's just like we talk about communication with the players, and there's communication with us as well. And the thing that we're always talking about is making sure that if somebody has a hot hand, let's ride with it. Let's just go with it. But there's always some communication that takes place.
Along those same lines, how do you think Clyde has handled these last 3 weeks since the shift to Isaiah?
Clyde is the ultimate professional. Clyde comes to work every single day. Clyde doesn't run away from anything. He's working his tail off. And then on top of that, he's helping coach guys up. That's the type of chemistry that we have. If Jarek was in that particular position, you'll see Jarek coaching those guys up, and he's always coaching them up. You'll see Burt take a part of that. But that's the type of team that we have. We all understand that at any given time, someone may be called upon to be great. So it's our job collectively as a team to making sure that those guys understand exactly the situations that they need to be prepared for. But on top of that, showing the support for their peers. That's what team ball is about. That's why I always say this. It's the greatest team game that you can have.
Coach, Andrew Wiley went down. Prince had to step in. Just what you saw from him, what he did, and then is there, how's Lucas Yang looking out on the practice field?
Prince, I thought Prince did a heck of a job of stepping in. Obviously, it wasn't a perfect game, but he came in and he played hard and he fought his tail off. That just goes to show you, giving due respect and their credibility to Coach Heck and Corey and what they do and how well that they have their guys prepared for those defining moments when called upon. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people take for granted outside of these walls. We have an outstanding coaching staff. We got some great teachers. But on top of that, the teachers do a great job of developing the people and then developing the chemistry within the classroom. And that way now when guys go out there, it ain't by chance that guys are going out there and performing up to par. It's because they got great teaching. And then on top of that, they got great support from their peers.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Lucas is practicing his tail off. He's doing good.
Last two, Nate and Pete.
Sorry about that.
Eric, I gotta ask it because you were a former NFL running back, but when you look at film with Jarek in pass protection, is he doing it better than you did it back?
He's doing an outstanding job, But that's the thing that's probably one of the most underrated deals that people doesn't think about when they mention his name. Jarek has always been a great guy, a great pass protector. He did it in Minnesota. Unfortunately, he had the injuries in San Francisco. He's just one of those guys, and I've said this before. You want the best football players who happen to be, the best running backs. He brings a lot to the table. He does a great job in protection. He does a great job of working with the offensive line. And so he's doing a hell of a job. Now, I wouldn't say he's better than me. I know he's for damn sure better than Greg Lewis, though. Nah, he's doing an outstanding job. I had to throw that in.
Just curious, what have you learned about him and what his potential could be?
First of all, he's a great kid. He's an outstanding kid. He's an outstanding worker. The kid is very, very intelligent. Our job is to make sure that we're not providing too much information to him and exhausting him to whereas he doesn't know what to do. So we just want to continually to bring him along and making sure that he can make the necessary progress that he needs to make. But I thought last week he played good, and he did a heck of a job. The guys he's doing a great job of mixing in with the guys. The chemistry seems to be going in the right direction. So anytime someone has an opportunity to change, and address in this league, sometimes the change could be very, very good for you. And so far, so good.
That was Eric Bieniemy speaking earlier today. Always good to hear from EB and Spags, both the coordinators, meeting with media earlier today. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, it's that time of the week again. Our Thursday Night Football same game parlays. I'll give you Jake's. I'll give you mine. We'll give you our thoughts as well on the Titans and the Packers coming up tonight from Lambeau Field. Got that coming up next here on Mike. Welcome back into Mic'd Up, ladies and gentlemen, here on 580 WIBW. It's time for Thursday Night Football. Packers and Titans. Maybe it'll be good. I would like to think it is. The Titans aren't terrible. They're not exciting, but they're not terrible. And watching Derrick Henry run a football when my team's not on the receiving end is legitimately entertaining. And the Packers, great comeback over the Dallas Cowboys. Christian Watson was actually useful. Good for him. But with it being Thursday Night Football, as your Jake said during our break, we'll read for FanDuel there. Same game parlay time, folks. It's what we do every week. Jake and I give you our same game parlays. Brendan and Dan give you theirs. And basically, we're having a friendly competition to see who can make the most money on Thursday Night Football through the rest of this season. Spoiler alert. Brendan and Dan are up by a little bit at this moment in time, partly because I am dead weight for this team. I have not hit a single Thursday Night Football same game parlay all season. Yeah, I'm 0 for like 10. I'm not great at this. But I try and I keep doing it. So now we will give you, I have Jake's. I'm going to give you mine first. And then we'll go through Jake's. And then we'll also get a little preview of this Titans and Packers matchup coming up here tonight. But the first part of my same game parlay for the Titans and the Packers tonight, give me Aaron Jones over 55.5 rushing yards. I think Aaron Jones will get some good carries. The Titans' run defense is pretty good, but I'm feeling like Aaron Jones is going to be able to rip off a couple of big runs, perform well in this game as well. Then I think you need someone to get some receiving yards in this game. I think that's going to be the big key in this one. I call this my fantasy football play, and that I want this to happen both for my money and for my fantasy team. Give me over 30.5 receiving yards for Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks already had 6 targets in his first game back last week. Had almost 30 yards receiving. I'm just saying, he gets integrated into the offense a lot more. He might hit some big ones. Give me over 30.5 receiving yards for Treylon Burks. And then you know what? Let's get real wild, folks. Let's go over 184.5 passing yards for Ryan Tannehill. Just a nice little three-legger. Nothing crazy. Those odds get up to plus 407. That's not bad. So my $10 wager turns into $40. That's a $40 return placed in the bet. And that is my Thursday Night Football same game parlay coming up again. For me tonight, I have Aaron Jones over 55.5 rushing yards, Treylon Burks over 30.5 receiving yards, and Ryan Tannehill over 184.5 passing yards. What helps me in this game? Packers run the football early, and more importantly, I need the Packers to get a big lead in this game. Because then they'll run the football with Aaron Jones a bunch, get you the rushing yards, and then Tannehill has to air out the ball a lot, get you the passing yards, and hopefully get you the Treylon Burks yards as well. Now, what does my good friend Jake LeBon have for this game? First off, Jake would like everyone to know he does not like any bet in this game. I don't blame him. This is a tough one to pick. Neither Jake nor I feel particularly great about either of our options in this game, but this is what Jake has coming up for his Thursday Night Football same game parlay. He's going heavy on the Packers for his bets here tonight. He's got Christian Watson over 41.5 receiving yards. Watson had a big game last week, caught 3 touchdown passes, had a couple of long ones. He's starting to show off that deep ball connection with Aaron Rodgers. He could catch a 40-yard pass and Jake be hit on one catch. He has Aaron Jones at 50-plus rushing yards, an alt line a little bit lower than mine. I don't blame him there. Both Jake and I trying to hope for some Aaron Jones rushing yards in this contest. He has Aaron Rodgers 225-plus passing yards. That's an alternate passing yards line he has for Aaron Rodgers. He thinks that the Packers offense will really move the ball in this one. And then he has a Derrick Henry anytime touchdown. That's always good, folks. Derrick Henry is going to score a lot. I never think it's a bad idea to think Derrick Henry is going to score, particularly if you think the Titans can get near the goal line, because then they will just give the ball to that big man named Derrick Henry. So I think that's good. Well, Jake odds go to plus 640. Jake's payout over $70. So if Jake and I both hit today, we get 110 combined dollars, and we both start really trying to kind of get a bit of a lead there on our friends on 580 Sports Talk. But those are our Thursday Night Football same game parlays. Do what you want. We do it for fun. If you guys want to get into it, of course, please do. But if not, as always, do things responsibly. But then also, you don't have to. Just enjoy the game. But we enjoy it. We do it for fun. We like to pass these things on to you as well. A little preview, though, for tonight's matchup between the Titans and the Packers. If you are going to watch it, I would advise it. It's not the worst game Thursday Night Football's ever had. Like, I think this will be a competitive match between the Titans and the Packers as Brendan walks by me in the background there. I know he'll be watching. He's got to watch his beloved Green Bay Packers that he would love to remind you he is a part owner of. He gave us a little certificate to prove it. But I think it'll be a fun game. I think it'll be a competitive game. I think the Packers might have really actually started to try and turn a corner against Dallas. That great comeback win means a lot. The game's at Lambeau. Lambeau's a fun atmosphere to watch a football game in. I think as long as Aaron Rodgers can maybe find some more trust and more development with his receivers, which Christian Watson might be showing, I think that will help them a lot. This is also, though, a good Titans team with a very good Titans defense. So I think this will be a low-scoring defensive struggle there. And then just, like I said, watching Derrick Henry run the football when he's not facing your team is one of the most fun things you can ever do. Like, I hope I get to watch Derrick Henry stiff-arm a Packers defender into the earth. I hope somebody gets a Derrick Henry stiff-arm to the face and then falls flat on the ground. It would be funny to me. And I would laugh. And I would enjoy every second of it. But overall, gang, this is going to be a fun football game tonight. I've been enjoying the Prime broadcast. I watch my Prime Thursday Night Football games with their Prime Vision, their next-gen stats. Because, surprise, my big nerdy behind wants to watch a game with also advanced numbers, scrolling up the side and fourth down decisions and average air yards per pass and all those things. I love it. I think it's a very fun way to watch the game and learn more about the game as you're watching. But overall, it's been good content. And I honestly think tonight, if you ain't got nothing going on, you got Prime, throw on Packers and Titans. I think it'll actually be a very good game tonight, a very competitive game tonight. Packers, I believe, are the favorites by 3.5 points. Let me double check that. I just saw it there just briefly. Yeah, the Green Bay Packers are a 3.5 point favorite. I think that's about right. I don't know if the Packers will cover, but I think it's going to be a close game. I don't know if this ends up being more than a 1-score differential on either side. So I think it's going to be a nice, close, fun game. So tune in, watch it. Should be a good time. The Packers offense trying to find themselves against a good Titans defense, but it'll be interesting. With Ryan Tannehill back, the Titans actually throw the ball. They actually pass more. So we'll see what they can do. Hopefully for my wallet in my fantasy football team that none of you care about, Treylon Burks can have himself a nice game tonight. But overall, it should be a fun between the Packers and the Titans this evening over there in Lambeau Field. We'll take another timeout. When we come back, the Chiefs and their wide receivers. How much of a chance on Sunday is it to be an audition for the 2023 wide receiver room? We'll get to that coming up next. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW, wrapping up this Thursday edition of the show. Unlike Jake, I can remember what day of the week it is. However, I will tell on myself. Last night, I did forget what day of the week it was. I was prepping some other things for myself this weekend. Without Washburn, my weekend's actually open. With them, their season being over, unfortunately not selected to a bowl game. Emporia State got the bowl bid for a little bit of the MIAA, so Washburn season is over. But that means my weekend is actually more free. And so I was in the process of figuring out what I was going to do this weekend and kind of planning some stuff out, get some stuff done that I'm needing to get done that just... When you work in sports, your fall and your winter really suck. And I mean this in a polite way because we love what we do. But this is the busiest time of year for us. So, like, we're usually busy on a lot of these days. And so it's rare that I'm like, wow, I got like a weekend open and things I can actually try and get accomplished around my apartment. And so as I'm like figuring this out, I was like, oh, I'll do this. I totally thought like today, like the physical day we're on right now, I thought today was going to be Wednesday. Like I was a day behind when I was at home. So I'll tell myself with that. I may take shots at Jake when he says the wrong day on air. I was 100% that way last night. And then all of a sudden I looked at my calendar. I was like, wait, tomorrow's Thursday. Oh boy, that throws not much off. But like, oh man, I'm much like Jake. Everything just starts to run together at some point when we get into this time of year because we have just so many different things we're covering and we're doing and all these just different things going on. So it all runs together. But I hope every one of you is also having a good time. We got Thanksgiving coming up next week. Speaking of which, early programming note, we're off Wednesday through Friday next week. Sorry, Thursday and Friday next week. We'll be with you on Wednesday. See, what did I tell you? My days start running together, and I forget what is what. We are off Thursday and Friday next week. So only 3 days of the program. Same thing goes on for our friends at 580 Sports Talk. They come on right after us. Brendan and Dan, they're off Thursday and Friday as well. So next week, only 3 days of both shows. So get your fill through Monday and Wednesday. We'll be up Thursday and Friday. Hope you all can have fun with your either family, friends, by yourselves, whatever you're doing. However you're choosing to spend Thanksgiving and all the days after that. Hope you have a fun time. Hope you have an enjoyable time. Enjoy some football. It's going to be bad football on Thanksgiving Day. The slate stinks. But sometimes just because the game is being played on Thanksgiving, it makes it more fun. I know I will be sitting in front of a TV watching all 3 games like the degenerate that I am because I can never get enough football at this point. But enjoy that. That's what's coming up next week. A little early programming note. We'll, of course, remind you and get more into that as next week rolls along. But the Chiefs wide receivers, we began today looking at them, and I talked a little bit with Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network when I again thank Kent for coming on about that. And can Sunday be kind of an audition for the 2023 wide receiver core? Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, they're going to play. Barring anything crazy happening tomorrow, they're going to play. Marquez Valdez-Scantling was back at practice. He's dealing with an illness. He should play, particularly if he practiced today. We'll get the ideas of injury reports and all that coming up. And actually, Brendan and Deanne should have an injury report for you coming up on 580 Sports Talk. So stay tuned here to 580 WIBW after today's edition of Mic'd Up. Listen to Brendan and Dan. They'll give you an update on that as well. But Juju Smith-Schuster, probably not playing. But Cole Hardman doesn't look like he's going to play. So what will that do in the context of getting an idea of what the Chiefs wide receivers will look like coming up in 2023? What will that team look like? What would it seem to be going forward with what the team is going to do and what kind of an opportunity does it present itself? And I think Kent made a great point that because of the other great pass catchers the Chiefs have, because they have Kelsey and even Gray starting to get there and Jared McKinnon out of the backfield, other guys who can really step up and try and help, it is kind of hard to get an idea of exactly what the Chiefs have in their pass catchers. But I think Ken also made a great point. The real question becomes is who becomes your X receiver in this situation? What we mean by X is the guy who plays on the boundary and kind of that wide receiver one spot, usually isolated on the backside of plays. Normally for the Chiefs lately, that's been Juju Smith-Schuster. Does Marquez Valdez-Scantling get that run coming up on Sunday? Is he that guy? That's what I would think. Kent brought up the idea of maybe Travis Kelce gets some of that run there. Maybe he's treated more as a wide receiver than a tight end on Sunday. I could see that. It would be creative play design and a creative team construction from Andy Reid. Same time, when have we not seen Andy Reid really construct and try and really make those kind of creative and interesting play designs? But my big thing, if Juju and McCole Hardman aren't coming up on Sunday, I'm particularly interested to see how does Kadarius Toney play and how does Sky Moore play? We've seen Toney kind of really ingratiate himself into this offense and get put into this offense heavily here since he's come into the fold. He got his first career touchdown against Jacksonville, easiest touchdown he'll probably ever score in his career. And then ended up making some big catches and doing some great things with the ball in his hands after the catch and stuff like that. I wonder what more they could do with him if the idea is, well, man, now we need you to basically be wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. We need you on the field so much more, playing so many more snaps. Can he do that? That does become the question. Even the stuff he's doing right now, there's still particular packages. There's specific things. It isn't the whole playbook yet. And so I wonder what he's able to do and what different things he would be doing for this team if he ends up having to do more coming up on Sunday. Because we saw him take a little bit of the McCole Hardman snaps. He got the jet sweeps and stuff like that, and he'll probably still do more of that. And then outside of that, if Tony doesn't get those snaps, do they go to Sky Moore? And is this really a chance to, I wouldn't call it a breakout game for Sky Moore, but he gets a bit more of a run. He gets more of an opportunity, more of a chance, different things like that. Do we see Sky Moore do more of those things and do those different things and do those different aspects? I wonder if we'll be able to see more of that coming up on Sunday. I kind of hope we do. I'd love to see what he can do and what he could run with more of some chances in the offense and things like that. But we also don't know. We don't know what that'll look like. We don't know what the offense in general will look like coming up on Sunday if it is heavily a Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney wide receiver room. We know we would see a lot of Travis Kelce being involved. We know we probably would see some more Noah Gray, some more Jody Fortson, even Jerick McKinnon helping out of the backfield. But the receivers themselves, it would be at least be an opportunity to try and show something. Show a little bit of something for the Chiefs, a little bit of something that they can do going forward, and just try and show what the team needs to do coming up in 2023. Because like we noted, Juju Smith-Schuster is a free agent. This team likely will try to re-sign him, but there's no guarantee they can. So then it comes down to, what do you need if you have to go get a new free agent wide receiver? If you need to go get somebody else, what do you do? What type of guy do you want to try and go get? Do you really need that bona fide X wide receiver, that bigger body on the outside who can kind of do those perimeter things all on their own, kind of over there on the backside of the play? Can they do that? Do you need someone who does that? Because so far, Juju Smith-Schuster done a great job about it. If you use Travis Kelce in that way coming up on Sunday and that works, then if you don't have Juju, maybe that just becomes your plan going forward and you use Travis more in that way. But sometimes, as we know, when you take a guy out of his usual spot to try something new, not perfect comparison, but a la Chris Jones and the edge experiment, it sometimes doesn't work. So, I think Kent made a great point, and there's not going to be a ton we can glean from whatever happens on Sunday. I think there'll be a little bit we can glean. And then just overall, when it comes to worry about pass catchers, as we've seen, there was worry about Patrick Mahomes, and now he would do without Tyreek Hill. And he's been fine. I think at this point, the belief needs to be, as long as 15 is under center, the Chiefs will probably be pretty fine with whatever they have to roll out there at their pass catching options and seeing what they have to do going forward. But overall, should be a fun one coming up on Sunday. And remember, tomorrow, we will give you our Chiefs keys to the game and what the team needs to do to really be able to put things away and get a win over the Chargers and set themselves up to win their 7th straight AFC West divisional title. We'll take one final timeout. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with the mic drop. Time for the mic drop to wrap up this edition of Mic'd Up. And this one's a bit of a twofer, but it's about the same thing. First things first, congrats to Steve Fisiak. He is retiring after 43 years of broadcasting. Fizz, I don't know what you're going to do, my man, but whatever it is, enjoy it because he has earned retirement more than anyone around here. Fizz is done with the Royals. He's retiring from broadcasting. I have to assume he's just going to sit, relax, enjoy his retirement with his family and his friends. It'll be a good time for him. But Steve Fisiak officially retiring after 43 years in the industry today. The Royals made that announcement. And they also have already made an announcement on his replacement. Jake Eisenberg, the voice of the Omaha Storm Chasers, filled in a little bit this past season when some of the guys were down feeling sick. He is officially going to join the Royals radio crew for 2023. You'll basically replace what Fizz was doing. He'll mainly be heard on the Royals Radio Network, which you can always hear right here on 580 WIBW. He'll also fill on select TV broadcasts, much like Fizz did to fill in for Ryan Lefevre. So congrats to Jake Eisenberg, a well-deserved promotion for him. It was great to hear him do some fill-in games. He's always done some great work with the Storm Chasers, even done some fill-in job for the Mets. But now he's going to be basically permanently with the Royals. Great to see, and he'll add so much to the broadcast coming up this coming season. And again, congrats to Fizz on retirement. Very, very well-deserved. That'll do it for this edition of My Dev. Missed any part of the show, go to our website, 580WIBW.com. Over the podcast page and click on Mic Up. You'll find an hour-by-hour breakdown of the show. But coming next, Mic'd Up with Brendan and Dan.